I guess we'll just do some quick introductions, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dani Kagan. I'm one of the co-founders of City Moguls. And this is Victoria Marshman in the beautiful yellow, who's also one of the co-founders. We're really excited to have hi Polly. Yeah, everyone get on camera. Let's see your beautiful faces.
Well, if I wasn't giving the webinar, I might look less than decent.
That's fine. No one cares. We're all in this together. But yeah, for those of you who are new to City Moguls, we're a platform that celebrates and educates and connects amazing entrepreneurs to really inspire great leaders. And we do that through live events, which are currently on pause. So we have transformed a lot of our events to digital. So we're going to be doing lots more of these interesting webinars. We have another one next Tuesday with 2 of our Mogul alumni. And obviously we've started a new initiative called Mogul Cruise, which you can go to citymoguls.com for more information on and join a crew and network with some really amazing people. So I'll pass it off to Victoria to introduce Bailey, and we'll get going.
Yes, so for those of you who don't know Bailey, she is the founder and CEO of Skills Camp, a soft skills training company, and was named one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women. Bailey is a TEDx speaker with almost 2 million views. Wow, Bailey. An award-winning digital marketer and a businesswoman with a talent for helping people develop the skills they need for success. Her work and expertise have been featured in Forbes, CBC, Fox, and Flair magazine. And if you didn't see Bailey on the City Moguls runway, she was honored as a mogul in 2018.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. Everything's blending together right now.
Yeah. She also has a master's in communications and culture at Ryerson, and she's looking into the impact of social media on mental health, which is why we're all here today to talk about her signature 5 steps towards safe social. So I'll leave it to you, Bailey.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm really glad we're doing this and that we're recording it. And I know I had a couple of requests to make it available for even just a short time after. So we'll think about that later. Why we wanted to do this topic right now, especially, is that I've been getting a lot of messages and requests about social media and mental health, especially in the wake of COVID. So she mentioned I own a soft skills training company, and on one side of my life, that business has taken a huge hit because of COVID. Because of course it's based largely on public gatherings. And so we are also moving online, but at the same time, it's given me more time to work on Safe Social and get that organization off the ground, which I'm currently working hard on. And so this is really opportune timing. So I'm just going to share my screen with y'all. So you should be able to see both me, maybe some others, and the slides on screen at the same time. I'm just going to dive right in. So we only have a short amount of time, and I want to leave some room for questions. Beautiful photo. Oh my gosh. Why aren't I invited? Did I look that great on my wedding? I thought we were closer than that. Well, I'm going to be getting married in a couple years. Should I be inviting her? Like, I didn't realize the wedding was this past weekend. Oh my gosh, it's my friend's birthday. Wait a sec, are they out right now? Does that mean that I should post for her? Or is that like a post from last year? Okay, well, if she posted for her, then I need to post for her. And then that way she'll post for me. Okay, do I like this photo? Does she really need more likes? Why am I even following this person? Do I even like their content? Okay, you know what, whatever. I'm just gonna like it. I don't really want there to be any more drama. Welcome to the internal monologue of a very typical social media scroll. A monologue that so many of us are going through every day and we don't even recognize it happening. And a monologue that so many of my participants admitted to. So as we go through this, of course, because it's not a regular style keynote, I'm also going to be checking the chat. Today, though, we're going to be talking about safe social and social media's impact on mental health. Of course, we're going to be talking pretty quickly about 3 stressors, just 3 of the many that are out there that might be impacting you, 6 potential risks of using, and then my 5 steps towards safe social, as she mentioned. Now, a little bit about me, I actually started my career in broadcast journalism, so doing a little bit of local news stuff. And I liked that form of storytelling, but I had this moment where I was offered more opportunities in social marketing and digital marketing, and I kind of liked that version of storytelling better. So I went with that instead of going with the original plan. So just so you know, the chat that's going, Danny and Victoria are going to be monitoring that, and I'll just take their instruction for, when there's something I need to address. So anyways, I worked in social marketing for TV because I thought that that would be the perfect combination between what I was good at and what I loved in the original plan and what was opening doors. And I had what I liked and what I was good at, but then I had to consider what kind of story do I want to tell. And as much as I enjoy them, I didn't think that my talents were best used convincing you to watch more Kardashians on E! So I went back to education and built up a lot of my career at Ryerson University, doing things like digital social marketing, digital student engagement, back when this was a new thing. And it was there that really laid the groundwork for both my life at Skills Camp, the soft skills training company, and my research in Safe Social. So Skills Camp is what I do for most of my time now, except during COVID. And that's the soft skills training company. And where I was working at Ryerson, two things were happening. I was working in student affairs, which is kind of everything outside the class that supports student success, like learning support and health and wellness and stuff. And it was very clear that the students who used the services were more successful, but the reality was most didn't. And it was also clear that they went into the workplace and still needed those skills. At the same time, I mentioned I was working in digital social marketing, digital student engagement, and there was so much coming out at the time about social media causes depression in youth. And I was there asking youth to be on social media with me. So if I was going to be doing this, I needed to make sure that they could do it in a safe and healthy way. And that's what led me down the path of researching digital well-being as a professional before I even started any academic work. And then it was kind of like, well, I'm going to be doing this research anyways. I may as well get a degree out of it. So that's what led me to the master's. Now that you know a little bit about my present, I'll take you into my past. Now, probably about 6 years ago, my sister and I took my first no work vacation to Jasper, Alberta. And we were just going for 4 days. And this was the first time in over 4 years at that point that I was going dark, that I was turning on airplane mode, that I was turning off email notifications. I was no social media. And the first day I was there, I was still experiencing phantom vibration syndrome, where you check and you think your phone went off and it didn't. And I was distracted in conversation, and I was seeing these beautiful sights. And of course, my first reaction was to take out my phone and post it on social media, but it wasn't there. And so this was all happening at the same time that I was working at Ryerson and thinking, okay, if this is my life, personally, professionally, and academically at this point, and it's doing this to me, what on earth is it doing to everybody else? Because I am theoretically somebody who should have known better. And here I am showing withdrawal symptoms on vacation, which is absolutely what it was. I pretty quickly found I wasn't alone. The top 3 diagnoses on university campuses are anxiety, depression, and stress. And at the time, there was numerous articles and even research pieces relating social media use, time on social, to anxiety, depression, and stress. But what I actually found later in the research, as we'll talk about, was that the news articles did not do justice to what was actually happening in the research. I did know for sure, though, that 94% of 18 to 29-year-olds are on social media, and that in my own research at Ryerson, they were self-reporting spending at least 4 to 6 hours a day on social media. And if you research anything that's stigmatized, then you know that people tend to underreport stigmatized behaviors. So if, like, for example, I said, how often do you watch reality television? And you said 3 hours a week. If I followed you around, it would probably be more like 5. So even though I can't put that in a journal article, if they're self-reporting 4 to 6, it's probably more likely 8 to 9. So I don't do anything for that much time in a day. I don't sleep, I don't eat, I don't commute. There's nothing I do for, well, it seems to be sitting recently during COVID, but nothing for that long. So anything we're doing, anything we do that often has a lasting impact on us. And I wanted to be clearer about what that was, and then how if at all at the beginning, could we do this safely? So what's happening in that time became the most important question then. If time on social media, is that even enough of a metric? I wanted to discover what's happening in that time to make it either go good or go bad. Well, right now is a particularly tricky situation. So I'm just going to go through 3 of the main stressors on social media, but this list can go on for a long time. The first is highlight reels. Highlight reels are the collection of the best and brightest moments, just like in sports, when we are cutting together, when we look good, when we're out with friends and family, when we are edited and perfect. And the problem is that all of social media is the highlight reel, and we are struggling with insecurity because we are comparing our behind the scenes with everyone else's highlight reels. You know, why am I sitting here in my PJs? I mean, COVID's probably not a good example, but why am I sitting here all the time? Why aren't my friends out? Are they out for the birthday? And here I am in my PJs on a Friday watching Netflix, which honestly sounds like the greatest night ever. Here's my friend on vacation, BRB nap. Well, why aren't I on vacation? How come I can't afford vacation? How come my family doesn't do family vacations? How come I don't have enough vacation time? Why does it always seem like they're on vacation? Do they have to work? All these things that are a very natural part of the human experience, social comparison as a means of understanding our identity, but now you're comparing to the best parts of people all the time and it doesn't turn off. And then in addition to that, we have number 2, which is social currency. And these are the likes, the comments, the shares that have become this form, like a currency, like a dollar, by which we attribute value to something, which is amazing when you're working in marketing. And in marketing, we actually call this the economy of attention. I know, I was doing it. And that I could actually sell. So if you're not paying, kind of general rule of thumb is that if you're not paying for it, then you are the product. And that is the economy of attention, that every like you give, every share, every private share to a DM to your friend becomes a recorded transaction attributing value. Again, fantastic if you're selling t-shirts, because I can tell you based on what you've looked at, what you probably want. But the problem is that in our social media, we are the product and we're letting others attribute value to us. And so you know someone, or you are someone that's taken down a photo because it didn't get as many likes as you thought it would. And I've been there too. And it's kind of like we figuratively took our product off the shelf because it wasn't selling fast enough. So not only are we making these comparisons now, it's quantified for everybody to see and directly tied to us. And this is also why we'll later talk about, but especially why young people are more at risk. Number 3, and perhaps the biggest stressor of all, is harassment, online harassment. 40% of online adults have experienced online harassment, 73% have witnessed it, and 100% of the time it is worse if you are female, LGBTQ, person of color. I think you get the point. The funny thing is, this harassment is not always those huge things that we see in the news. Sometimes it's just that everyday online harassment, like that when I go into classrooms that my students sort of laugh at just because of how ubiquitous it is, how normal, which is kind of a sad thing. But that's the, that ugly screenshot you sent your friend, and now they've screenshotted it and they've posted it on their public stories without asking, which is actually called outing, which is a defined form of online harassment. Sometimes it's these everyday instances, like being cyberbullying, you might hear it called sometimes, even like being left out of a group, even though all the friends, or you're leaving someone else out, even though all friends are in one group and they know that they're left out, which would now be called cyberbullying. So the everyday online harassment is what we need to probably pay more attention to for ourselves as a general rule, because in the news we see these big stories. We see stories like Mallory Grossman that took her life after being cyberbullied, and she was only 12 years old. And we see women like Anita Sarkeesian being sent death and rape threats for sharing feminism about video games online. And sure, lots of people disagree with some of the things she says. Great, disagree. But creating video games that repeatedly beats her face and makes her look bloody and bruised and sending things to her house, I think that's a bit too far. There are 10 different types of online harassment. Some say more. And we have already, just in that short little bit, covered 4 of them. So harassment, sending or posting nasty, mean, insulting texts or comments; denigration, starting rumors about a person to damage their reputation; cyberstalking, repeated intense harassment, denigration that includes threats or creates fear; and outing, sharing someone's secrets or embarrassing photos online. Now, I can tell you that I've been in dozens of classrooms talking about this, and usually after this section, we have a conversation about experiences of online harassment that people have had in the classroom. And part of it is, I can tell you 100%, there's always stories. Most of them come from women. And that part of it is that in the classroom, people are saying to each other, wow, you always hear about this, but I didn't realize like it was happening to literally everyone around me. And so part of why I make this such a big part of this is that it seems far out, and maybe like if you're not being cyber stalked, sometimes it's just as light as being sent unwanted pics in your DMs, and sometimes it's as serious as the full cyber stalking, repeated harassment, all of this stuff at the same time. But it is probably happening to a lot of you listening. And so does this affect us? Yes, of course. How could this not affect us when we're doing this for 4 to 6 hours a day? And why this is so important right now is because we're doing it even more during COVID. People are locked inside, and then of course, how are they filling their time? By taking in all this content on social media. And I think that that's why I'm getting so many messages right now, because we're not filling our time with things maybe that we used to. And it affects us because when you have, you might not be the person listening that is getting cyber stalked, or you might not, have a very toxic relationship with social media yourself. However, when these micro moments, maybe it's just that one comment, or maybe a few days a week I'm frustrated, or a few times a week I catch myself using social media more than I care to, and I get angry at myself for that. When that happens over and over again over time, then of course you start to see that macro problem, because it's repeated intense use and repercussions. So what can this do to us? I'll go through 6 potential risks of using social media. Right now, research, anecdotally, we are distracted and we are losing productivity. We are seeing these notifications, we're getting frustrated with ourselves that we can't focus, that we're trying to study for this exam, that we're trying to get this work done. Oh, now I have all this extra time on COVID. Let me write all of these blogs that I was hoping to write, but yet I find myself distracted every 5 minutes, and then it's like even worse than it was before, that I'm pissed off at myself for being distracted. And this was a big thing that came up in my research that wasn't necessarily expected, that even though I was talking more about social comparison and their experiences of using, just the general frustration with a lack of productivity was something that emerged as frustrating people. Many of you already have noticed the notifications at the top of my slides, and likely many of you are bothered that they're not checked. So I will check them for us all. A collective sigh of relief. Sometimes this distraction is not, it's just small like that. It's just that this thing is going off the handle and we need to check. And those notifications are designed to be read, to get your blood pumping so that you need to check. Even just the kind of always on your screen. So sometimes it's just that frustration, just a little thing like that need to check. 2, we are sedentary. We are often sedentary if we are using social media, meaning that we are sitting, we are not moving around. And this is dangerous because this feeds into what we might call displacement theory. So that the sedentary behavior is taking away from things that we know for sure cause better mental health. So things, for example, proven over many years, even before social media, that things like going out in nature, going for walks, physical fitness, being in community with friends and family, physical relationships, this kind of stuff is being replaced for a lot of people, by screen time, which is often sedentary, which again is displacing behaviors that we know lead to better mental health. 3, we're lonely. Even though we're supposed to be more connected than ever, people are showing rates of loneliness like we've never seen before. So I've heard this quote, and I wish I could say who it was, but it was, we're always connected, but no one's connecting.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we see, because especially for young people, again, very normal phase of life where you're feeling all this peer-to-peer becomes more important than ever before. But even right now, people are feeling really lonely right now because of course, we're told to be inside. And then you're going online and, maybe, other people seem to be having all of these Zoom wine dates with their friends, and I haven't had any of those. And it's like a whole new area of comparison that we weren't even having 2 weeks ago. So we're feeling lonely. A fourth risk, anxiety and depression. Of course, when you start adding all of these things together, and you maybe have even stressors happening outside your life that have nothing to do with social media, which happen to be the most important thing, then you start seeing those rising levels of anxiety and depression when these things compound over a period of time and you feel like you're maybe losing control. So yes, that's when we start seeing those rising levels. 5, FOMO, or the fear of missing out, another risk of participating. It's an actual social anxiety from the fear that you're missing a potential connection, event, or opportunity. And that FOMO could be, yes, I need to go to this event. I've had students literally tell me, I just went to the event because I knew pictures were going to be taken. So even just fear of missing out on what this means for you, or that things are going to happen that you're not going to be a part of, or maybe that this thing is showing you 50 notifications in the Instagram DM chat with your friends, and just that fear that something might happen that you're not going to be a part of. And FOMO has actually been shown to be the biggest predictor of addiction. So basically, the degree to which you feel FOMO, the degree to which you feel like you need to check, correlates with the likelihood that you will be addicted. It's not really that surprising. So if I feel a need to check, I'm going to check more. Addiction. So many of you likely, given all my experience in classrooms, when I ask this question, how many of you considered deactivating your social? The majority of the room puts up their hands. And then when I say, how many of you actually deactivated your social? Probably about 90% of those hands go down. And then I say, of those that considered it, how many got back online or stayed offline? And now we're down to either 0 or 1 hand usually as a base. So when I ask them, okay, well, why'd you get back online? For anybody who temporarily deactivated, why'd you get back online? And it usually always comes back to this FOMO, or the benefits of participating. Like, I wasn't connected to news. People were talking about things that I didn't know about anymore. I had to for class, all this kind of stuff. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Now, addiction, number 6, the only 6th risk of using that we're talking about today. Addiction, by every measure right now, there is mass addiction by every measure. And the interesting thing is that it's both interesting to me, but I'm obviously biased, is that it's both psychological, physiological, and physical. So we have both the chemicals being released, like dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, these hits of that feel-good chemical every time you get a like or the shot of those chemicals, you want to do that thing. Your brain is quite literally being conditioned to want to do more of that thing, which is why, again, young people are more at risk, because we're conditioning their brains at a time where it's really growing fast. So physiological release, and then the addiction also now, which I find a little bit more interesting, is now the habitual addiction. So I'm just waiting in a line and I have to be on my phone, because obviously if I'm not on my phone, that means I don't have friends and I'm a weirdo. So I'm here oh yeah, this also comes up. I just opened my phone and I already opened Instagram and I didn't even really remember how I got there. So this is interesting, because if you ask somebody who's tried to quit smoking, what was the hardest part, they will often say to break the habit. So this habitual piece is another part of the addiction that I'm looking more into right now. Now I'm going to stop sharing for a sec. Actually, I'll share them all at the end. Okay. I want to share a resource with you that's I finally had time to develop out, which is a self-assessment called Are You Addicted to Social Media? I need to make clear, I'm calling this a self-assessment. I had to call the quiz for a short time and I was like, No, people think this is going to be some BuzzFeed style, what kind of cheese are you quiz. So it's not that. I had to call it a self-assessment because it is actually very much informed by addictive patterns and behaviors and symptoms and signs of addictions across risky behaviors, and then just put into the context of social media. So it's an actual self-assessment, not a BuzzFeed style quiz. And I'll share that link with you after. Nobody's seen this before, so I'm happy to be sharing it with y'all. And it's going to be part of that new organization and website I'm really working hard to get off the ground right now, so that you don't need me in front of you to learn all this stuff. So there we just covered 6 risks of social media use, just 6 risks of use. We covered feeling, maybe you're feeling distracted and lost productivity, sedentary, maybe you're feeling lonely, anxiety, depression, FOMO, addiction. We could go on about risks of using stressors, seeing traumatic imagery, XYZ. So there's so many. The harassment we talked about. This means then that by every measure, social media is a risky behavior, like sex or drugs or alcohol. So we know for sure now that a risky behavior is simply just something where when you participate, you expose yourself to potential harm. That's it. And we know for sure now that you expose yourself to potential harm or potential risks on social media. We just went over just 6 of them. So it's a risky behavior, just like the rest of these. And the difference and maybe difficulty right now with this risky behavior versus others, especially for young people, which is, I hope we all have some empathy for, is that they are at a time of life where it's very normal to go outside the home to compare yourself as a means of understanding your identity. It's very normal. It's happened long before social media, and it usually happens around the puberty phase up till about 25. That's kind of the kind of identity formation phase of life, though it can happen forever. Peer-to-peer comparison, and then like we said, now you're doing it, except it's always on, it's directly tied to you, it doesn't shut off, and it's quantified. Wow. Though they won't want to hear this, under 25, your brains are quite literally not done growing, which means you cannot possibly be your most self-actualized self at that point. You're not even done growing, and that should be seen as an opportunity to actually put good stuff into your brain while it's still developing and forming those healthy habits. It also means, though, that you're more at risk to risky behaviors. And then I think especially right now, what I see with a lot of young people is that just in this particular phase of history, I don't think it's going to be like this in 20 years, or I'm working to make it not so, but parents and educators right now largely did not grow up with social media. And so they were actually conditioned differently on one side of things, like physically conditioned differently, but also they maybe want to say things like, get your head out of your phone, or, oh my gosh, kids these days, which is very unhelpful. Again, just try telling the alcoholic to just put the drink down, my God. So that does not work. And also it completely invalidates the feelings of young people. And so imagine you are going through something online, or you are feeling lonely as a result of social media, or you are being harassed. Again, I told you that a lot, like in every single classroom, people are putting up their hands. And then you go to that, what are traditionally the normal supports for this kind of thing. You go to, I don't know, guidance counselors, therapists, teachers, parents, and you want to say, like, I'm being harassed in my DMs, and they're there saying, wait, what's a DM? So right now there's a huge disconnect that I'm trying hard again to help with things like this, but just a lack of maybe understanding, because we don't have 50-year-olds yet that went through puberty with social media. They don't exist yet. So that's why it's a little bit difficult right now. Now, even after everything I just said, all the risks of using, it's important to note that I actually love social media. I do. And I do feel I get a lot of the benefits now. And I do get the community and the inspiration and the motivation and all that stuff. And what you don't read in the news, and what I found firsthand in researching this, was that the news didn't say that 100% of my participants, and also in the research, they also gave positive experiences of using social media and positive feelings as a result of it. So then that's interesting, because when I went into my master's based on the news, you thought you would find a more explicit correlation between time on social media and rising levels of anxiety and depression. And what I actually found was no consistency at all. And some people said there's an issue. Some people said there's no statistical relevancy here. And some people said the exact opposite, that time on social media improved the mental health of their participants, which I also found. And so then it becomes about, okay, time on social media is not necessarily a good indicator of anything. Again, we come back to what's happening in that time and who are you offline. If abstinence is not an option because you want those benefits, or you have to participate because your class is making you, have an online chat on Instagram for class participation, or because you want to personal brand yourself for work or the job search. If abstinence is no longer an option without consequence, the question needs to be, how do you practice safe social? And that's the big basis of my work, which is not to say everybody needs to get off. If I went to a high school and did that, they would literally laugh me out of the room. So I need to focus on, well, what can we do to, like, what's happening in these situations that makes my participants, that makes people go from getting that benefit to over into the dark side. And now I'll tell you a little bit about that. I think that social media is neither good nor bad. It's just the most recent tool we're using to do what we've always done: tell stories, communicate with each other, compare ourselves. And now again, just when we talk about those risks, and we're often talking about the dark side of social media, we're really talking about the dark side of people. And that dark side that makes you wonder, why doesn't your family look like that? Or makes you feel lonely, or makes you go on and say, well, I don't like you today because you look better than me. Or the harasser that does the harassing. It's really the dark side of people that we're talking about. And this proved to be the most important, because that means that it's the people that we need to focus on before we get on social media. And when you start thinking about this like a risky behavior, the treatment actually becomes quite similar to that of other risky behaviors. So the 5 steps towards safe social, I'm also going to give you things that you can do today. The first step is building awareness and understanding. And this is what we're doing right now. So I'm really glad you're here. It's what I was doing in the TED Talk, which is why I, of course, encourage people to share that, because that's the whole point, to even get a sense of what the risks might be so that we're informed going into our use. It's making sure that we're speaking the same language. And since you likely found out about this on social media, this audience is not one I think I probably need to spend as much time with on this. But for example, if you know people who are maybe parents or educators who don't really have accounts themselves, then it's time to start that they have to learn the language. It's time to understand this stuff. Maybe they immerse themselves in accounts, kind of like learning any other language. Maybe you speak to people who speak the language unjudgmentally and really try to hear their experiences. Maybe you do informal learning like this. Maybe you do formal classes at something like Ryerson and taking a course, but you need to learn the language so that you can help people and help yourself. So 2, we modify our consumption. Just like any other risky behavior, do I enjoy wine? Yes, I do. It's my risky behavior of choice. So do I get drunk every night? No, I don't. I have learned, as many of us have, because it's very old risky behavior, how to modify the consumption to make it safer. So it starts by asking yourself the tough questions. Things like, am I doing this because I need it? Or am I doing this because I want it? Am I doing this because, it's just normal? That's what everybody does. If I said that to you about drinking, how might you react to me? Am I consuming because, it generally brings joy to my life? Am I actually getting value from this? Like, does it taste good? Or am I drinking Smirnoff, like the first year of university? That's another story. Are you ever peer pressured into it? Did someone ever say, oh my God, you're not on Instagram? Like, you have to be here. You're going to miss everything. Like this kinds of conversations. If I said that about alcohol these days, you'd probably say like, that's bizarre. But there are risks of using, and someone needs to decide for themselves if they can manage these risks right now. And you don't overdose, you consume responsibly and safely. And again, the Safe Social, the organization, I'm going to have so much more of this that I want to have available to everybody coming out in April. But so just some things, mindful scrolling is one of them. I actually did this with my participants where I made them go through maybe 5 posts on their feed, and I made them say things like, do who do you like? Like, why are you, stop, I would say stop. Like, you just like that photo. Do you actually like that? Like, asking yourself these questions. Why do you follow them? Do they actually bring value to your life? Kind of even just starting with 5 photos. And sometimes I would see them just go like. And I'd say, wait, why are you doing that? And so I was being that check for them, but you can be that check for yourself too. Just starting with just maybe 5. Just start with 5 and actually read it and actually ask yourself those questions. Privacy security settings, dedicated offline time. There are a bunch of apps to block notifications, also a bunch of things I'll be sharing in the next month or so. And prioritizing the offline, because even though, again, we're more connected than ever, research is also starting to show that it doesn't do the same thing for us in terms of feeling connected, in terms of more like anecdotally people feeling lonely. The online is not replacing that. And also kind of the release you actually get from like the oxytocin of, say, for example, a hug is not happening online. So there's a lot of work in this area to show that, unfortunately, or fortunately, that the online connection is not replacing the offline connection with others. 3, we build the offline soft skills. Now, I told you that I actually found no consistency in the research, and one of the most important thing that emerged from my work was that how they felt offline before use proved to be the most important thing, bar none, in how they used. And it kind of sounded something like this, almost exactly like this. If I went online, or if I went to the gym that day and I feel good, then I go on Instagram and I see these fitness models and think #goals. But if I didn't, I feel dusty, I see them and think like, I hate my life. That's almost exactly how it would sound. And that's really interesting, because that means that the same piece of content from the same poster, the same creator, can not only have a different impact on 2 different people, but can have a different impact on the same person in 2 different hours. So it's not about the content. It's not about the influencer. It's about how they were feeling offline that made them read the content differently. So if I have any academics on here, you will love, like, your Stuart Hall encoding, decoding part of your brain is firing off, because they were decoding the message differently based on how they were feeling at the very minute, like at the very time. And it could be different an hour later, which means we need to build skills in ourselves, like self-awareness, like self-confidence, like resilience, so that no matter what happens, that we are able to bounce back, like mindfulness, so that we never find ourselves an hour later not remembering what you're doing. So that should be a sign for anybody. If you've ever been, like, in terms of addictive practices, if you've ever been on social media and you don't remember what you've been doing for the last hour, that's absolutely a sign of addiction, and would be in any other risky behavior as well. If you actually feel really uncomfortable putting the phone down for 30 seconds to cross the road, that is absolutely a sign of addiction, and would be in any other risky behavior as well. So again, that resource that I'm going to share with you after, the self-assessment about, am I addicted to social media? It might not be for you. It might be something you can share with others. And of course, I would never just leave it there. The organization will also have, okay, but what can you do about it after? But at least start with, again, understanding yourself. 4, we model good behavior. So what I don't like to see is people who like, right now, all of us on here, we are showing young people what's okay in this space, how it's okay to behave. We're modeling our use with social media, our relationship with social media and mobile technology to others. And so what I don't like to see sometimes is parents who are saying, you know, oh, kids these days can't get their head out of their phone. But it's like, but you've been documenting your kid's life on social media their whole life. Is it possible that you showed them a relationship with tech? Or like my least favorite one is people who are complaining or spreading hateful opinions on social media all the time, and then also complaining it's a toxic place. Is it possible you contributed to the toxicity and that you're showing other people that this is what's appropriate here? Okay, I just need to pause for 1 second because I need to plug my tech in, and of course course, such is the life. One sec.
While Bailey is plugging in, you guys can feel free to, I love all the chat on the side. It's awesome. So, and I have so many questions like bubbling up, which I haven't even put down. So if you have like just a little question that you want to add, feel free and we'll chat through it.
Okay. Good. Can you hear me? Okay. So speaking of tech anxiety caused by tech, right? This is the main part right now. So one of the other resources I'm also going to share with you after is another guided self-reflection that I created based on this called Are You a Good Safe Social Role Model? And it'll walk you through, I think there's just about 9 questions that make you have to think about how have you maybe contributed to social media either being a healthy or harmful place. And again, you can send it to others. 5 is holding responsible parties accountable. It used to be 4 steps towards safe social. Now it's 5. And that happened in the last couple years because what would naturally happen after I talk about this is people would see, yeah, clearly there are risks of using. Who's doing something about this? And I would say, just like every other risky behavior, it should be a multi-pronged approach. And so in that way, can governments do more? Yes, they can. Yes, they absolutely can. This is policy. In other forms of risky behaviors, governments regulate them. In other media, governments regulate it. So say, for example, on kids' television, you are not allowed to, certain advertisers are not allowed to advertise on kids' television. We know this. Say, for example, like alcohol, cigarettes, all that jazz. Yet, that same advertiser can go to Facebook and target 13-year-olds with things like pharmaceuticals and vaping. That's policy, that's regulation, and that's something that governments can do, and they are starting to do in places like Europe, who's really leading the way with the GDPR and all the repercussions of that. And what they're saying is, North America is pretty behind. They're saying, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, if you are serving our people and you're making money from our people, you need to figure out our rules and what we believe is best for our people. You figure it out, Facebook. I don't care if you're making money. And that's kind of what's happening. I don't care where you're based. I don't care where your corporate headquarters are. If you're serving people here, you figure it out. And so governments can do more. Of course, the companies themselves can do more. Just like any other distributor of any other risky behavior, we would say, you have some responsibility to make sure people understand how to do this safely. Just like there's warnings on cigarette companies, just like alcohol companies will donate to MAD campaigns, maybe Facebook starts funding this kind of education in schools. So again, right now, food for thought, because that's probably the next phase of my work. But parents can do more, educational institutions can do more, the media can do more, and maybe stop making it so like every socializing agent can do more to model a relationship with social media. And then finally, eventually, we have to stop blaming others for our addiction. So is social media hurting your mental health? Based on all of this and based on all of my research, the answer is actually that it doesn't have to, because I can point you towards, again, 100% of my participants and myself who all experience positive feelings as a result of using social. And I can also point you towards people who don't have any of the negative impacts. So what is happening there? And that's practicing safe social. And if you walk away with nothing else, it's to remember that who you are offline is the most important piece. So you can stop shaming yourself for being on social media for too long in the day if you have felt that you actually got value from it. If you didn't, and you are frustrated that you felt like you wasted time, well, then it's a different discussion. But if you felt like it was actually adding value to your work, or your life, or your relationships, then you can stop shaming yourself for that. It's not inherently bad. There's just bad things that can happen on it, and are to a great degree right now because nobody knows how to practice safe social. So that is the end of the formal part. I wanted to let you know that, again, I've mentioned this a few times, but I'm working very hard during COVID to get this organization off the ground so that people don't need me in front of them to learn what I know about this. So there is a new website that's going to be coming soon, and that'll be safesocialmedia.co. There's nothing there at this time, but what I do have right now is a new e-newsletter mailing list. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff and you want to help me spread this message, then I'm going to share also a MailChimp link. And I know that was also part of the registration. So if you said no in the registration and maybe you think it's interesting now, I'll share the MailChimp sign up link as well, because I'm definitely going to need help to spread this message if we want to kind of improve our whole relationship with social media. So all right, thanks. So I'll stop sharing. And
Thank you so much, Bailey. That was so helpful and so interesting. And I wish more people would sign on for this kind of stuff, because it's like, who isn't on like dealing with all of these kinds of issues? So we really appreciate it. If anybody wants to ask any questions for Bailey, now would be a time. You can unmute yourself, or if you're too shy, you can just put it in the chat and we can relay it. But I'm going to just open it up for questions.
I'm also seeing some questions in here. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we can start. Victoria and I kind of had a similar question. We both teach dance to children. So we kind of were on the same page. Like, what are your thoughts on parents being able to post videos of their children before they even have consent? And B, like, how do you even monitor a child's use?
Yeah. So, okay. I'm glad you asked. In this organization, like in the first iteration of the website, there's going to be a parents page, and also an educators page. So I'll have lots more about this. For example, like how to have the talk about safe social, how to, like, all the things that parents can do to prepare themselves, apps parents can use. This will all be there. But for now, this is such an interesting conversation about how parents are choosing to model the relationship with social media. So I know some parents that are like, no, I'm not posting. When my sister had a kid, like she had her first kid, we had a conversation like, this kid, she's a baby and you wanted to post, like this kid, baby's running around naked. It's like, oh, you want to share with she only has really her family on Facebook. But then it was like, oh, wait a sec. We need to have a conversation about this, because even though we don't think it's, to make it bad, like to make it weird would be on the other person. However, you have to think about like distribution of child pornography and what others might do with that. Like, it's not about you, it's about the risks that you're opening yourself up to. So these are very normal conversations. I think that if parents are deciding, like, the way we've structured our society is that parents have like parents are able to make decisions for their child up until like 18 years, let's just say. So if a parent decides to give their kid alcohol before 19, that's their decision, right? We're just talking about younger ages now. What I just want parents to think about is, what are the potential risks of this? And I, for example, certainly have drinks with my parents before I was of legal age. But they also did a lot of work looking back to model safe drinking. And so I think if parents are not having this conversation, then they can't do the other. I don't think you can expose your kids to the risks of social media without first having these conversations about how to navigate risks. What if a parent puts up, I'm like getting shivers actually, because what if a parent puts up a photo of a kid and the kid is harassed? Like the kid is still going to receive the harm of that, even though it wasn't even them putting it up. So I don't think you can expose your kids to the risk unless you have a good way of managing it, of understanding it, and of helping them like navigate it as well. Especially the older they get, when they're a baby, they're not going to be able to do anything, but the older they get, it could very well impact their mental health as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And like, I really do like how I've never heard it being compared so much to like alcoholism and like those types of addictions. And it's really interesting how you use that. Amanda has a question. Bailey, do you host high school talks for students?
Hello, Amanda. I do. Yeah. I go into high schools a lot, though. Again, right now, Safe Social like funds itself by public gatherings. So COVID has also hit a lot of those right now. So I'm trying very hard to do more online things, but I do go into high schools quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Danny and I were just saying offline, we're both in the dance studio life, which is like already very high risk for mental health issues because there's so much body image issues. So we'll have to do one with all of our like dancers that are in that like 15 to 17 age range because they need this information.
Yeah, it's funny because when you're doing an hour version of this, or even like half an hour, I've done even a 7-minute version of this, you can only do step one. You can only do awareness and understanding. But what I hope people will make time for in the like organization side of this, or, you know, maybe this year if I roll out a course or something, is the actual real work, which is, it's so funny because I own a soft skills training company, and it was one of these things in life where I thought like, oh, social media, mental health, soft skills, you know, you think about even your brand, like, do these things match? And it was just this poetic thing of life going into the research, and how what emerged naturally was that the most important thing was who you are offline, and that I was already building the solution. And so now it's just a really cool thing because I can, and I want to say to people, the work is building things like resilience, self-awareness. Here's a free activity from Skills Camp, like, to go do that. So now that'll also be included too.
That's awesome. Well, if anyone has any other final questions, definitely shoot them off now because we're going to wrap up.
I was just scrolling up, and Danny, you actually brought up a good point that, especially because a lot of people here own their own businesses. How do you relate this to when you manage like a professional business account? I mean, I know for City Moguls, for one thing that we've done to really manage like the safe social side of things is to use our team to take on different pieces of it. So not one person is responsible for all the parts of managing social media because it can be super overwhelming. So we've like delegated certain parts of, so we're not all consumed one person, but would love to know your thoughts too.
Yeah, I do get asked this question a lot. I think especially from influencers, like if you're, that's the next tier. So let me just start with people who need it for their business. Social media, like my own personal brand as well, I know that I get inbound leads from my personal brand on social media. So then I know that for the business of Bailey, for the business of Safe Social, for the business of Skills Camp, my personal social media is inbound marketing. And even I think if you can compartmentalize and like, if you think about it like work, every business has a marketing function. And you're going, and when you're on, you're doing work. Hopefully you've built up some mindfulness so that you're not getting distracted by all the personal DMs. But going to do work is work. Like, again, every business needs a marketing function. I don't think you should feel bad about that. However, I think though, if you are, let's say for example, you feel you have an issue, you don't like it, and just like you might feel like you have an issue with alcohol, if you're working as a bartender, you're more at risk. You just have to realize that. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means, okay, if I feel like I have a social media addiction, but I feel like the personal addiction, if I'm working, I'm working. But if I feel like the personal side of the addiction is really taking over my life, then I'm now more at risk when I work. So you have to probably, fortunately or unfortunately, you have to do double time on all the steps towards Safe Social because you are putting yourself in a risky situation more often, if that makes sense. Just the same as if you were an alcoholic and you're working as a bartender, you probably have to set extremely, like, even more strict rules for yourself about what you can and can't handle. And so maybe I'll actually would love to hear what y'all think about this, but I've had a couple questions in a couple webinars the past couple weeks, but I think in the first iteration of Safe Social, I was considering doing maybe like a bi-weekly Zoom meetup like this. You know, if no one comes, but even just to give people maybe the chance to talk about what they're going through. I don't know if that's a good idea. So let me know what you think.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And we're also, like, Vic and I are also happy to host like another iteration of this again through City Moguls if you'd like, but it's a great idea. Like, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see. I just know that sometimes after I give a talk, I'll have parents that everyone's coming up with questions about their specific situation.
Right.
And I know, just like every other risky behavior, part of the solution is community, is group therapy, is learning from how others are managing something, taking those. Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking about right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, we'll definitely, we'll send everyone a note after this call anyway, and get everyone's feedback. But if anyone has any last minute questions, we're going to wrap up in the next minute. But kudos, Nadia, for being on camera. That's awesome.
Am I the only other one on camera? Oh, I
am. It's awesome.
No, but this was great. If I could just jump in for a moment, I guess. Yeah, I really love this. And I think with social media, so I do a thing. I started doing this with myself and I do with my clients now called an activity swapping. So I really get them to look at their filler activities, right? Because all of a sudden we have all this time, but this interesting thing is happening where people are just spending more time on social media, like binging every single new thing that's coming out on Netflix, and they're not actually filling that time with meaningful things that are going to add to their lives. So that's sort of for what I do with my clients, is really have them look at what are the filler activities you're doing, right? Because it's filling up your time, but is it adding to your life in any way, right? There's this new craze with this Tiger King show. I did not jump on the bandwagon yet, but like everybody's talking about this Tiger King show. And like those same people are saying it's a ridiculous show. So it's just really interesting that people just pick up these habits, right? They get into this routine. And I think like by speaking about it the way you are, calling it social, that it does make you think about it a different way, right? Like, oh, am I consuming social in a safe way? And for me, I'm a business owner. So when I started, I think I never had things divided well. Like I'd start my journey on Instagram for business purposes and then end up like, an hour later realize now I'm just mindlessly scrolling on the app. So I think it's great to sort of put it in this bucket of safe social.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you do with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's such a great idea.
What do you do again? Remind us.
So I'm a career and organizational designer. So right now I work mainly with individuals to help them really cultivate happier careers. But my next goal is really to get into the organizations. My background is I was a project manager for 8 years. So in that, my favorite part was really like creating some stronger processes and better leaders and really cultivating an energy of happiness and positivity with my teams. So yeah, my next move is really to start working with organizations to really help cultivate like more human workplaces.
That's awesome. Good for you.
But yeah, I've been following you, Bailey, for some time now, and I love what you do with Skills Camp. So when I saw this, I'm like, let me jump on this.
Yeah, I know. I really should do more things open to the public.
Yeah. I know
what we're here to do for you, Bailey.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd even love to, Bailey, connect with you offline after.
Yeah.
I just had my first event. I started like a little online event series, and would love to talk about bringing you on to do something regarding safe social.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right now, it's so needed because again, it's time.
I know. I agree.
So we love everyone connecting. We're gonna head off because we know that other people have other calls probably at noon or things to do. But thank you guys so much for joining. Bailey, thank you so much. That was so amazing and so helpful. We'll definitely do another one. And we'll keep you guys posted on City Moguls. And if you want to join a crew for our next cohort, check online. We are full for our first one, but we're going to open up a second cohort. So yeah, thank you all so much. Bailey, you're amazing. Thanks. And thank you all for joining. And hopefully we'll see you soon and you can join us next Tuesday for our next webinar.
Bye.
See ya.
Have a good one, guys.